Hello, everybody. Welcome to the workshop today on advanced emotional intelligence. Now, I'm going to do my best to fit this into this very condensed 20-minute space that we're holding here for this section in the app. Remembering that in insight and impact and in my one-on-one or the elite agility elite, we're diving into this way deeper. So here in Agility Accelerator, doing my best to give you everything that you need to take this into your own life. So if you don't have a piece of paper and a pen, and aren't ready to push pause when you need to, let's get into that space right now. But anyway, so welcome everyone to this workshop today, as we dive deeply into the core aspects of advanced emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and empathy, and how each of you can apply these in every facet of your life, right? We're not going to just be learning about emotional intelligence as you can look it up on Google, okay? Like you can get the definition and see what it's, called out to mean, but we're going to step into a space of wanting to embody it. Like I eat, sleep, breathe the methods, the modalities, the tactics, the skills, the tools that make up my high level of emotional intelligence, but I actually embody them. They are who I am because I've made them to be that way. So, okay. Before I get too off track and we end up in a big 45-minute to an hour-long session here, right? Item number one. So category number one, understanding emotional triggers. And I'm sticking with the word triggers here because I don't know all of you. And so it's a word that everybody can resonate with. I prefer prompting events, but we're going to stick with triggers. So we're going to start by focusing on these emotional triggers. What are those? Or should I say, what are these not? Right? They're not just random occurrences. These are deeply informative about our underlying emotional landscape. Okay, so for example, think deep, right? If you find yourself suddenly feeling angry or defensive, right, what you need to know is that's not just about that situation at hand. It is also about what that situation touches on deeper inside you. Okay, so it's not just the situation at hand. It's also about how it touches you inside. So you have to identify your triggers. So pick one, identify a trigger. And to do that, maybe reflect on a recent situation where you reacted strongly. Okay, ask yourself, what exactly happened? And write it down. Now, I get it. If you want to just listen through, that's fine, but write these down. Okay, so the second piece, analyze that trigger. Look deep into that emotion, right? Or look into the emotions that surfaced. What came up? Were you feeling threatened? Perhaps ignored? And you know what? For a lot of us, I know it was for me, this was the big killer for me. I felt undervalued, unseen, unheard, dismissed, right? Okay. Then number three, connect to past experiences. Now, what I mean by that is you want to consider whether that reaction ties back to any past experiences or patterns. Okay. This might remind you of times when you felt similar emotions as a child or in a previous relationship. I had to learn how not to bring past relationships as a survivor of domestic violence, emotional abuse, how not to bring some things with me into my new relationship. Now, we've been together 28 years as I record this video. So clearly it works when we figure out how not to do it. So those are those three things. Okay. Understand emotional triggers. Identify your trigger, analyze the trigger, and connect it to past experiences if you can. Now, next, this is an empathy deep dive, as deep as we can go in a relatively short period of time. Again, remember, this is an essence of a time. This is summary of an entire month's worth of focus work that we did last month or in February. This is currently March that I'm recording this, but so this is the best I can do in this short space. So moving to empathy, it's important, right, for you to recognize that true empathy involves more than just feeling what others feel. Okay, that's sure we some of us have more aptitude to feel and sense what other people are going through on an energetic level, and that makes us a little more on the empathic side. But empathy is more than just can I feel what somebody's feeling. It's actually about connecting with their experience while maintaining your own emotional balance. I'm going to say that again. True empathy is about connecting with the other person's experience while maintaining your own emotional balance. So, number one, levels of empathy. Okay, I want to discuss the three levels. Okay, so we have cognitive empathy, which involves understanding another's feelings on an intellectual level. Okay, so I want you to write these down. These are the levels of empathy. So we have cognitive empathy, which is understanding from an intellectual perspective somebody else's feelings. Then we have our emotional empathy. Now, this is about what they feel, right? Which can sometimes overwhelm us, right? Like if your husband is feeling extremely, we'll call it excited, right? Whether that's a negative or a positive excitement, if he's feeling that, right? Like that energy can be overwhelming. It's like, whoa, 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 hold on, wait a minute, right? Like, I'm not in your space yet. So emotional empathy is feeling what they feel and knowing that it may overwhelm us. And then there's compassionate empathy. This is the goal, right? Passionate empathy is about supporting others without taking on their emotional burden. Right? So we have that ability to see it, to empathize with it, feel it, but we don't have to invite it to permeate our soul. Right? We don't have to carry that. It's theirs to carry. Second thing here when we look at this empathy deep dive, right? So know those levels of empathy and then do an empathy audit. And if there's not one on the platform just yet, there will be. It is being constructed as we speak. I've got it started. I have to, this has to be very purposeful. Anyway, so the empathy audit. Now, let's do this, right? When we're talking about that, I want you to consider, bringing forward an example for yourself. So consider a recent conversation where empathy was 100% required. We all know what I'm talking about, right? Like, oh, wow, I got to have empathy here. Now you ought to ask yourself, as I'm reminiscing about this, conversation or interaction, ask yourself, did I stay present? Or did I find myself planning my response while they were still speaking? It's a big deal. And then ask yourself this final question. How did I feel afterwards? Did I feel drained? Or did I feel balanced? Okay. There's so many different ways we could dive into this and dig into this and really get into auditing and looking at so that you can truly analyze it, and hopefully that audit is there. If not, it is included in the full worksheet from the Insight and Impact group. So perhaps reach out, right? Perhaps reach out. Maybe we can figure out a way to get that full audit to you while we're waiting for it to be live on the platform. Now, I don't want to get sidetracked, right? Like this is, and I've got bullet points here in front of my face so that I don't get sidetracked, because those of you who know me know that I am fighting right now not to go into a deep dive big workshop here, because this is important stuff. So we're going to move into integrating emotional intelligence. Okay. So to make emotional intelligence a daily practice, we have to develop a clear, actionable strategy. So I'm going to give you, 3 bullet points to get you started. Okay. Because this isn't something that can be done in a 20-minute workshop. Hopefully this is, you're here and it's like, oh, I need this tune up. I need to get my little bullet points. I need to audit myself. But if nothing else, it might highlight for you some places to do some deeper work. Okay, so integrating. Number 1, inward focus. Every single morning, take a moment and check in with yourself. Right? We have some very specific ones that we do, but for right here, right now, right? Like just check in with yourself, identify that emotional state and set an intention to manage your emotions proactively throughout the day. So if I was to give you an example, if you're feeling anxious, plan to use deep breathing techniques before a meeting. Okay, like we're not anxious. Well, some of us are, but some of us aren't anxious every day. But if we wake up one day and we're feeling particularly anxious, right? Like, okay, I'm going to set the intention to manage my anxiety today from a proactive stance. So I'll make sure that throughout the day, I'm using my deep breathing techniques, especially before I walk into this enormous meeting that's coming up, right? Whatever that looks like. And that was some ad-libbing. Anyway, number 2, interpersonal interactions. In your interactions, I want you to practice active listening. Now, those of you who've been around me for a while, you know that active listening is also a very big focus point that we dive into, because active listening is very active, right? Like you have to listen with the intention of hearing everything, which means we don't get up into our head and start formulating what we want to say before they're even done. We listen completely with the intention of understanding. Sometimes that means I have to ask a question. Do you want me to listen from a perspective of offering you my perspective? Or do you want me to listen to just listen, right? Do you just need to be heard? Because there's 2 different ways there. So active listening is listening completely based on the intention that you have for that space, then you get clarification that you've heard them, understand them, feel them, and know exactly what it is they want from you in return before you give them anything. You're focused fully on the other person without interrupting or planning your response. This practice builds empathy and it improves your relationships. So, number 3, situational responses. This is when we're faced with high stress situations. We have to use that emotional intelligence compass. Now, if you don't have the compass, I'm going to give you a version here, right? So that's when you ask yourself, what am I feeling? What do I need? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my values and supports my well-being? That's your emotional intelligence compass in short. Yeah? I'm going to, right, before I respond, what am I feeling? What do I need? And how can I respond in a way that aligns with my values and supports my well-being? Now, the more we practice, the easier it gets. A lot of my clients are like, oh, I'm not fast on my feet like you are. And I'm like, oh, I've been at this for, well, decades, if we want to get real honest, right? I maybe have only been in practice today for 12 years, but I've been at this for close to 3 decades. So, wow, that's a really long time. Anyway, conclusion. Yeah, come on. Right. So I got to wrap this up because I don't want it to be too long. So I want to encourage you, each and every one of you, pick one aspect from this session right here, right now, to focus on this week. Just one. Whether it's becoming more aware of your emotional triggers or prompting events, or if it's practicing deeper empathy, or, wow, you know what? I'm pretty good at these. Like, I know what my triggers are, and I definitely have that empathy thing down, but I need to work on integrating the emotional intelligence strategies into my daily life. Whatever it is, you choose that one commitment and commit to it to yourself. And if it helps you jump into one of the community spaces here, right? Like, we're definitely going to be having a challenge section. We're going to, hopefully we'll have a weekly commitment section where, we can just like toss it out there. I don't know. And then of course, there's that aspect of, I know a lot of you are going to want to maintain your anonymity and stay here with the exception of our work together. So I appreciate and value. Don't take this as pressure to perform or to do anything that you're not comfortable with. But I would say that, we're all here for the same reason, right? Like, this space is for a certain level of people. And so there's room for you to allow yourself to be seen and to start getting comfortable with that. Final challenge, keep a journal this week, right? And some of us, I don't call them journals. I log, I track, I just write things down, right? Like, so take note of instances when you apply emotional intelligence. I love the, let me pat myself on the back. Like, that went really well. That felt really good. Like, I paused, right? I gave space. I did my compass, whatever it is. And observe, right? How that impacts your interactions, and your feelings about those interactions. So after an interaction, what am I saying? Right? Like, reflect, take time for that. This practice is definitely going to help solidify your learning and make emotional intelligence a more natural part of your life. I do, as always, recommend, jumping into the insight and impact space, especially if you're not working in a space of agility elite, right, where we're doing one-on-one work. Even those folks, I'm always telling them, like, oh, come to insight and impact. It's just so effective. I have watched folks ever since the launch. I've watched folks expand exponentially, So anyway, all right, I digress. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you soon.